Hello everyone, I'm Eunjeong Park from Sunchon National University in South Korea. The presentation that I'm going to present is entitled The Effects of Using Lexical Bundles in a Learner Corpus to Improve Academic Writing. Writing is essential in learning English. Also, it is one of the productive language skills that we need to help students enhance. These are some of my students' writing samples. I found that most common noticeable errors occur at the word and phrase level. And this motivated me to think about what would be a beneficial approach to teach English to my students. Hence, words and phrases are essential as basic components of L2 writing. And it is necessary to pay attention to phraseology, which is a study about words and phrases. This idea also leads to the need to consider effective L2 writing instruction. Literature also supports my agenda. For example, researchers found that there has been a lack of implication utility to use a phraseological approach in teaching and learning. Granger, in 1994, also stressed the need to focus on learners' language output to meet the students' needs. To address these gaps, my research has two major purposes. One is to identify linguistic features from placement test essays as needs-based approaches. The other is to examine the effectiveness of corpus-aided instruction through a multi-method research design. For the sake of the time, I'll focus on the second question regarding the effectiveness of corpus instruction. The framework of my research is mainly system functional linguistics. In system functional linguistics, language is seen as a social semiotic system based on actual use of language. There are several social purposes of language use: expressing ideas as ideational function, interacting with others as interpersonal function, and text structure as textual function. In particular, my research heavily relies on textual function. In system function linguistics, I examined lexical grammar. Lexical grammar is a term used to emphasize a continuity between lexis and grammar. In other words, it's on a continuity between vocabulary and grammar. The functional linguists argue that vocabulary and grammar cannot be separable. They should go together for meaning making. Lexical bundles refer to the frequent sequential combinations of multi-word phrases, which are used in my corpus instruction. Corpus is a collection of text as data-driven learning. It allows us to see language patterns and perspectives on the language system by utilizing machine-readable texts. Thanks to the advancement of technology, we collect a large volume of data and analyze it. Often, it is also connected to computer or technology-assisted language learning. On top of the linguistics perspectives, I tried to bridge theory and practice in education. I employed instructive second language acquisition, which is also known as ISLA. Simply, ISLA is second language acquisition as a result of teaching and instruction. In ISLA, researchers investigate the effects of manipulating various perspectives of second language learning effort from input language processing to context of learning. From a range of different perspectives on this project, I used nations vocabulary learning regarding input language processing and context of learning with these two learning conditions. In intentional instruction, teachers provide explicit explanation and definition of the language terms. In semi-intentional instruction, teachers provide a learning environment where students can acquire language naturally. It is relatively implicit. According to Nation, process writing is helpful. So I used his process-based instruction with the principles of noticing, retrieval, and generation. Grounded on the literature, one of my research questions asks, which corpus-aided instructional mode is effective in improving lexical grammatical skills as part of academic writing? For the research design, I used a variety of methods. Morse says using different research methods can be triangulated to form a comprehensive whole. There were two phases in my research. Corpus research as phase 1 and mixed method research as phase 2. Regarding phase 1 corpus research, briefly, I collected students' placement test essays as a learner corpus. Total corpus size is rather small. As you see, almost 160,000 words. However, it met all the criteria to make a small learner corpus. Because my focus was lexical bundles, I extracted 39 full-word lexical bundles through Eunjeong, which is free software analyzing linguistic features. I used this list to the second part of the research. Based on the research question, I will present phase 2, mixed method research. The research was conducted in 3 ESL composition classes at a Midwestern university in the US. 50 international students participated in the quasi-experiment, and among them, 17 students participated in the qualitative research. Of course, I used purposive and convenience samplings. These students were assigned to 3 different groups: intentional, semi-intentional, and control group. As explained before, the intentional group was given explicit and direct instruction. The semi-intentional group was given process-based instruction, and the control group didn't receive any treatment, but they had general writing instruction aligned with the ESL curriculum. I used a sequential mixed method research. The first part was about quasi-experiment. Then, qualitative research followed after 5 weeks. Interviews, writing conferences, and the collection of written products were used as data sources. Member checking was critical to ensure if the participants' responses are valid and reliable. The analysis of covariance was used as the analytical tool for quantitative data, and I used thematic analysis and grounded theory for analyzing qualitative data. For corpus-aided instruction, learning objectives are aligned with the purpose of the instruction. Objectives of the intentional group include defining and analyzing lexical bundles and recognizing structures and functions of lexical bundles. In semi-intentional instruction, noticing and retrieval lexical bundles and generating writing pieces were the learning objectives. These are sample handouts that I used in my experiment classes. I also would like to share an instrument data. This is a test of students' lexical bundle use. 2 sets of the 20 questions were given to students. They needed to fill in the blanks by selecting appropriate lexical bundles from the item pool. Here comes the result section. I used analysis of covariance to see the statistical significance by comparing groups. In the first half of the graph, the results showed the semi-intentional group had a significant effect compared to the control group. In other words, semi-intentional instruction was effective immediately after following the corpus instruction. In this analysis, however, the intentional group didn't show any significant effect. Surprisingly, in the second half of the graph, we see that intentional group showed statistical significance compared to other groups. The semi-intentional group's score dropped and didn't show any improvement in the delayed post-test. Overall, while semi-intentional instruction had an effect in the short term, intentional instruction had a long-term effect. It's good to see that corpus instruction was effective in one way or the other. However, I wondered why. Also, I was a little surprised by this result. Do you remember this decreasing part? Some of you also might have noticed the decreasing score of the semi-intentional group. What happened to this group? These inquiries were not resolved by quantitative results only. That's why I used mixed method design to complement these inquiries by further investigating individual students' language learning with qualitative research. From interview and writing conferences data, students in the semi-intentional group considered lexical bundles as lexical components, while students in the intentional groups considered lexical bundles as rhetorical or grammatical entity. So, in this case, I can speculate that their perceptions of, or understandings of lexical bundles might have influenced the quantitative results. Lastly, some students in the semi-intentional group reported their learning was challenging. The semi-intentional group students also reported having abstract or unclear understanding of lexical bundles. For example, one student said, I get confused about what the meaning of the multi-word phrases in the instruction. Another student addressed the need of having explicit instruction. In conclusion, my research shows corpus-aided instruction is effective in the short term and long term. Explicit and direct instruction relevant to writing would be beneficial to low to intermediate ESS students. Here is the significance of my study. From this research, I found that developing awareness of lexical bundle use gives students opportunities to improve their academic writing to some extent. And ESL or EFL teachers can understand students' needs and develop linguistic resources with the students' output. Overall, I believe this research contributes to development and advancement of writing instruction and curriculum by showing the effectiveness of corpus-aided instruction. That's all for my presentation. I appreciate your sincere listening.